everybody. Welcome to this episode of Best and Worst. This is a show where we like to take on a talent or a concept and we talk about what we think are the best and the worst of that category. It's a lot of fun. We're excited to do it. And we hope that if you like this shorter episode, that you'll check out our longer episode of Hidden Gems podcast that we also do every week, where we take on a streaming service and we give you some hidden gems of that service. It's a lot of fun. We'll put a link to that longer episode in the description, so make sure to check it out. I am film critic Rachel Wagner, and Ryan is here.
Hey Rachel, it's great to be back with you once again. And normally we talk about, like, say, a studio or an actor or an actress, but this time we're going to be recapping the year that has been in movies. And thank God we have had a year in movies to talk about. We decided to cover our best and worst for what has been 2021 so far. And quite honestly, I don't think this has been like I think this has been a pretty good year for movies, at least the ones that I've watched. And maybe it's because 2020 was so world-rendingly awful that it's like 2021's bar was so low that it's at the center of the earth. But there were like four or five that could have easily been at my best, and only like one or two that could have conceivably been my worst, which I consider that to be a net positive.
Yeah, it's been really great for me as well. I've had the privilege of getting to go to a lot of festivals, and so that's been really fun. And there's definitely a bunch that I could have picked from those festivals, especially Coda is my best. I really love that film. It's not quite out yet. I think it's soon though, and it's such a good family film. I loved Together Together. That was one of my favorites. I loved A Quiet Place Part 2. I really enjoyed a movie called Misha and the Wolves, which is coming out soon on Netflix. Definitely want to check that one out. That one's crazy. Um, I loved Summer of Soul. So there's been a lot of really, really good movies that can make my best, and there have been some rough ones, but
Hmm.
it, not too bad. Like I really didn't care for Boss Baby 2. That was not for me.
I don't think anyone did.
So that was in the competition. There was a animated film that was barely released in theaters that hardly anyone saw called Charming, which was terrible. So there's been some. I did not like Crypto Zoo. That was an indie that I did not care for. I watched a whole movie about Tree at Sundance. That was rough. Literally just following a tree for 2 hours. It was rough. I hated America, the motion.
What is getting into Sundance nowadays?
I really disliked America, the motion picture. That was terrible. So those have been some of the bad ones, but I think my pick for worst is going to be somewhat controversial, but we'll have to see. So why don't you get us started? What is your best of 2021 so far?
So my best of this year so far is one that you mentioned, A Quiet Place Part 2. And wow, this was about as good a Quiet Place sequel as I could have ever hoped for. The first Quiet Place was excellent. I remember loving it from the first time I saw it, and then I watched it again at my local planetarium on the planetarium like roof, the big screen that they had there, and it was amazing. So when part two was announced, I was like, uh-oh, this is where the wheels are going to start to come off. And unfortunately, this got delayed due to the stupid virus, so I had to wait. And I'm glad it was well worth the wait, because this movie was downright excellent. Just from top to bottom, this retained a lot of the tension of what we saw in the first one, with Emily Blunt just being an absolute superstar and just trying to maintain while also possibly looking for other pockets of survivors that might exist. Killian Murphy is always excellent in anything that he's in, and his character arc is actually pretty compelling in its own right. Digimon Hansu is in it. No spoilers, but he's not in there very much. But when he is there, he is really good as well. And this movie actually did something that I did not anticipate. It introduced new things that I was excited to see in Quiet Place Part 3. They introduced, let's just say, people necessarily not worth saving. And I won't go any further than that. But The movie is just excellent from top to bottom, from the opening where you see how this whole thing got started up to the present point. It just, this movie is awesome. I think it will be at my number one. Summer of Soul was close to being my number one, but this will probably be my number one for a very long time. It's going to be hard to unseat.
Yeah, I love that film. I thought it was so moving and thrilling, and I loved the characters. It just really completely worked. One of my, if you combine the two into as one movie, it's probably maybe my favorite thriller I've ever seen. It's certainly up there in my top 10, that's for sure.
I mean, if they could combine The Godfather into a chronological movie, like part one, part two, and part three jammed together chronologically, then I could see
Yeah.
just A Quiet Place, the epic, being like starting out in day one, and then all of Quiet Place part one, and then immediately picking up A Quiet Place part two at the beginning there. Like that would
Yeah,
be excellent.
so good. So my best, there are a couple others I forgot to mention. I loved In the Heights. I thought that was incredible. I loved Dream Horse. I thought that was a really crowd pleasing, lovely film. I also, out of South by Southwest, there is a film called The Fallout that you want to look out for. Very moving, very good about a school shooting. That's and the trauma that this one girl goes through. It's very moving, very good. I also enjoyed Godzilla versus Kong, and I really didn't like the Godzilla King of the Monsters, so that was a pleasant surprise. So there's some I liked the Demon Slayer movie, even though I haven't watched the anime. So those are some of my favorites. But I had to pick my favorite movie of this year. It would probably make my top 50 animated films list now that I've seen it before I had done that list. It is The Mitchells versus the Machines. I loved this movie. I loved the family. I felt like I bonded so much. I connected with it so much. I could see my father in the dad so much. I could see myself as Katie so much and her dreams and what she wants to accomplish and her difficulty communicating with her family. I loved her relationship with her brother. I loved the brother, Aaron. He was so cute and so great. I loved the animation. I thought it was so inventive and beautiful. I thought it was really funny. I thought it was exciting. I just absolutely loved it. I loved the ending. I really connected with the message. I love Moochie, was so cute. The dog, adorable. I don't know. I just absolutely adored it. I've seen it now probably 4 times, and I keep watching it with different people. Like, you got to see it. You got to see it, and then they like it. So it's really great. I had the chance to interview the director after I saw it, so it didn't influence my review. I just loved it so much that I wanted to interview the director, Mike Rianda, and that was really great experience. So I just think it's so good. I love it.
Yeah, I was low key kind of bullied into watching this because I couldn't go on Twitter without hearing some mention of it. So I'm like, all right, I'll watch it. And I'm
Sorry.
glad I did because this was actually really, really good.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of a Goofy movie, especially in the relationship between Katie and her dad. It was
Yeah,
very
I can see
similar
that.
to Max and Goofy, but I mean, it was done so well that it's just, I guess, a nitpick. And also there was also a tiny nitpick about how this big company with the robots that are rising up is clearly a take on Amazon. They barely even changed the logo, so that's a tad on the nose. But again, it's small potatoes. The heart is there, the animation is gorgeous. Lord and Miller keep crushing it, and until I'm proven otherwise, I think they will for decades to come.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And the animation was just so colorful and the layers to it and how they use the 2D and to work with the CG and create that hybrid kind of look aesthetic about it was just so great. So it was wonderful in that way as well. So very good pick. What is your worst 2021 so far?
So my worst ultimately came down to two movies: The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, which was just pure annoyance in a like an hour 45 package, but it ultimately pales in comparison to the awfulness of the Forever Purge. I am so glad that these movies are not going to be made anymore because it has completely just lost the point of its entire existence. And the Purge movies, the Purge movies have always had a subtling of a subtling, that's a word, a subtle dose of subtext of, you know, of classism and among other things. And I get that. All movies are about something after all, some theme, message, whatever. But the Forever Purge forgoed any kind of story in exchange for just virtue signaling. This I counted in my head the amount of stuff that it was complaining about. Racism, police brutality, just it like thinly veiled references to Antifa. I'm pretty sure the director was thought about January 6th and was like, I've got an idea, and just wrote a movie around that. And it shows to the point where even though Josh Lucas is in the movie and almost saves it, not even he can like get this movie out of just being just terrible. I almost walked out. Like I was like, forget this, I'm out of here. But then I was like, no, as a good, I guess, critic up and coming, I should probably stay. And this so far has been the only movie where I turned into Roger Ebert saying, I hate this movie. Hated this movie. And I think literally that's the only time that that's happened all year. And hopefully that is the only time.
Yeah, I've never seen a Purge movie, and so
Don't,
I was saved
don't.
from that. So
Because the first two are fine, and then it goes all downhill from there. Literally, the first Purge poster is just a Trump hat with the first Purge on
oh my
it.
gosh.
These movies are about as subtle as a brick to the head, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, like I said, there are some pretty bad movies I could have picked. The America, the Motion Picture was absolutely atrocious. I hated that movie. I really hated Boss Baby Family Business. Thought it was awful. I really was not a big fan of Fast Nine or whatever they called it these days. Uh,
Incoherence, the movie.
yes. There were two really terrible movies at Sundance. Well, three. I really just liked Crypto Zoo. And then there's a movie called Users, which was supposed to be all like deep and thoughtful about the internet and mankind. It was so stupid. I hated it.
Ask me what it means. Ask me what it means. Ask me what it means.
Yeah. And then the tree movie called Taming the Garden. That was rough. Crypto Zoo was not for me. I did not care for that. And I liked the previous film that the director had done. So I was disappointed with that. I didn't like Peter Rabbit 2. So those are some of the ones I didn't like. But the worst movie, and this can be controversial maybe by some, I think the worst movie is Earwig and the Witch from Studio Ghibli. It's without a doubt the most disappointing because I'm sorry, when you put Studio Ghibli on that label, there's a certain degree of expectation that comes into play. And previous to this, the Tales of Earthsea was their worst movie, and you just reviewed it on your channel. People should look at it. It has lots of good things about it, but I have a hard time even thinking of anything good about Earwig and the Witch. Maybe the score, the music, maybe, but the animation is terrible. It's their first CGI animated film, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that, but I have a problem when it's terrible looking CGI that looks like something from a rejected Barbie movie. And I enjoy the Barbie movies, but this looked worse than those. And there's no story. It is all set up. The whole thing is just about her, like, getting kind of adopted by this witch and her, like, working for her. And I don't, there's just no story. There's nothing. There's no plot. And there's the characters certainly aren't interesting enough to stand on their own. They're kind of bizarre and strange and unappealing, and I didn't care about the characters. I just thought it was wretched. I really didn't like it, and I was pulling for it. I wanted Goro to have this, another success after Ursula was so disrespected or whatever by his own father. but this is way worse than that, in my opinion. I thought it was terrible. And yeah, I think it's the worst movie I've seen. And like I said, it is certainly the most disappointing. That's for sure.
You know, when I was doing my research for my review of Tales from Earthsea, I came across a quote where Hayao was asked about his son, and he said, "I looked toward my son and I saw my kid. He wasn't ready." I'm like, "Sheesh, Hayao, like he's your son. Like, show a little love." And then I saw the movie. I'm like, he was onto something. Earthsea wasn't bad. There was stuff I liked about it, specifically Cobb the villain. I thought it was really good, but I've heard nothing but terrible things about Earwig, and I will get to it eventually because since I've reviewed pretty much half of the Ghibli canon now, I might as well finish reviewing them all. So
Yeah.
I know I'm going to get to Earwig eventually, and I am dreading it. So
I
say a
mean,
prayer
maybe
for me.
it'll prepare you and you'll find things to value, but I thought it was Artemis Fowl bad, if not worse. Because at
Oh
least
dear.
Artemis Fowl looked like decent. Like it wasn't gross to look at. But this, all the character designs were really unpleasant. I mean, just everything. I just thought it was terrible. So that's my worst year. And I don't imagine anything taking its spot. So there we go. Let us know your pick for best and worst of 2021 so far. We would love to hear in the comment section on Twitter. And Ryan, where can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. Then there's, of course, my YouTube channel, which is just called Ryan Cam.
Great. You can
Um,
find, oh, go ahead.
like we alluded to, I did review Tales from Earthsea. That video was released today. We're recording this on a Sunday, so that video did drop today. I'll be reviewing a couple. I'll be dropping a couple Twilight Zone videos throughout the week, and then this Sunday I'll be dropping my review for 1997's Gattaca. This is a movie that is really great and nobody talks about. So this will be my opportunity to introduce you all, hopefully, to one of the best sci-fi movies of the 1990s, a true sleeper hit.
Yeah, I love Gattaca. It's really good. You can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So please take a look at that. And also, if you check out our full Forgetting Gems podcast, we would really appreciate it over there. We'll have a link down. We're doing Hoopla this week. And make sure you also check out the Hallmarkies podcast. We have a lot of good stuff going on over there. And we have our Patreon group and merch store, which is a ton of fun. So please look at those links in the description section. So thanks so much, everybody, and we'll talk to you all next week. Bye.
Bye.